Here's a quick run through of the keynote for Sunday. First up, you have your title slide, 1 minute countdown when it's time to begin. You have prayer, worship. Hannah will be gone, but you should have Marissa, and then she can call up some kids to help lead motions and all that. So your songs this week are Look at Me, I Will Follow, and Walk by Faith. After Walk by Faith, you can go ahead and play the truth video. And, before the truth video, you want to dismiss the preschoolers.
Here we go.
The word video.
Yeah.
And go into your message. For the message, we have the title slide again, hitting on that theme of individuality, discovering who you're meant to be, how God has made us. And then once again, you have the memory verse. What you could do for this week, we haven't done it yet for this month, but with this memory verse, how you made me is amazing and wonderful. Next up, you can invite the kids to sing this song that was done 2 summers ago, 2017. Here you go. So we don't have any motions for this, but hey, this is a good in-house production. The kids should enjoy singing it, and then just clap and dance and all that and have some fun. So after that, of kind of hitting on that verse and hitting on that theme, introduce the bottom line for today. God wants me to see what really matters. For this Bible story, for this message, either you or Dana can do it. It's a pretty well-known Bible story. For those who have grown up in church for a long time. We've done this one, I think, once or twice before in KUC, but it's how David was anointed. So you can have Dana do this or you can do it yourself, but here's how it goes. As kind of an introductory piece, we have like an eye chart, a vision chart. So you can have the kids kind of look at that and see if they can figure out what this says. If they can't figure it out, give them this try, where it kind of does separate the words by different shades of black and gray. But if you can see it there, the Israelites want a king to lead. So you can talk about, hey, we need to be seeing the right thing. And the Israelites were at a point in their history where they wanted a king to lead. Their very first king was King Saul. He was the guy that would have been like this Lego character where he was tall, he was strong looking, he just looked like a king. He stood out in the crowd. So you can talk about how that was their first king, but King Saul did not do a great job. Here's a little What's in the Bible clip to kind of set up the end of King's reign and the beginning of David's.
King Saul wasn't always good at doing what God asked him to do. Sometimes Samuel would tell him what God wanted him to do, and he would do the exact opposite.
So that video clip is like 2.5 or 3 minutes in length, but it kind of talks about how Saul just kind of was full of pride and wanted to do things his way and didn't always listen to what Samuel, God's prophet, had instructed him to do. Therefore, he wasn't listening to God. So after that video clip, come back to this slide and talk about how King Saul had a chance, but he blew it. So who is going to be Israel's next king? So now you have your story. Samuel went to anoint a new king. We have some verses here. 1 Samuel chapter 16, 6 and 7. When Jesse and his sons arrived, Samuel saw Eliab, the oldest. He thought, this has to be the one the Lord wants me to anoint for him. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider how handsome or tall he is, because he was handsome and he was tall. The Lord continues, I have not chosen him. The Lord does not look at things people look at. Here's your big key. People look at the outside of a person, how tall or good looking they may be, but the Lord looks at what is in the heart. That's your big key for this whole message. So later on, you can talk about Samuel saw Jesse's other sons, and nope, they all looked great, but the Lord kept telling Samuel, they're not the one. So a few verses later, Samuel 16:13, Jesse sent for his youngest son, saying, oh yeah, I've got one more kid. He's out in the field tending to the sheep. But I mean, if you really want to take a look at him, that's fine. So Jesse sent for his youngest son and had him brought in. He looked very young and boyish. But then the Lord said to Samuel, get up and anoint him. This is the one. So by comparison, Saul and David, you might bring it back to this. The Israelites want a king to lead, and they just had kind of a plain young boy. Didn't really look that special compared to how Saul looked, being a tall, strong-looking guy who stood out. David was quite the opposite. He just kind of looked boring. He was a young boy. But God saw what was in David's heart and saw that David had a pure heart and was a man after God's own heart. So once again, to recap, come back to this verse and emphasize to the kids that people look at the outside of a person, but the Lord looks at what is in the heart. We tend to think about how people look if they have a lot of money, if they look handsome or tall, or if they're athletic looking. We judge a book by its cover, basically. But the Lord looks at what is in the heart. So once again, the bottom line for this week, God wants me to see what really matters and how we treat other people, but also how we see ourselves. We may not look in the mirror and feel great about our own appearance, or we may wish that we were taller, or we may wish that we were stronger. That's not what God's concerned about. As we think about ourselves as individuals, God wants us to see what really matters. He wants us to look within ourselves and to determine if we really have a heart that's pursuing God, or if we're just worried about how we look. So that's your message in a nutshell. That's your keynote. At this point, break off into small groups. Thanks.